Welcome, class. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guest evolutionary biologist today. For this explainer, I'm going to be your expert guide on what is, quite frankly, the most thrilling journey you could ever take. We're talking about 3.5 billion years of survival, adaptation, and sheer grit. We are going to track how we got from microscopic single-celled organisms all the way to the complex, stargazing humans sitting in this room today. So let's jump right into this fantastic student question I saw on the board. Who planted the seed of life on Earth? I mean, it is the ultimate mystery, right? Because for the first billion years after our planet formed, Earth was completely barren. It was just this unconscious, dead rock floating out in the void. So how did the greatest show in the universe, the epic story of evolution, actually get its start? Well, here is our game plan to figure that out. We're going to cover cosmic origins and the dinosaur era, then standing up to survive, followed by tools, meat, and fire. After that, we'll look at migration, teamwork, and language, jump into agriculture and ancient inventions, and finally, we'll wrap up with evolution's unfinished cosmic story. All right, let's get into part 1, cosmic origins and the dinosaur era. Starting at the very beginning of our timeline, we have the Panspermia theory. Now, think of this kind of like cosmic crop dusting. Scientists hypothesize that around 4 billion years ago, a massive, catastrophic shower of asteroids bombarded Earth. And those rocks, they potentially delivered the amino acids, literally the seed ingredients of life. Then, by 3.5 billion years ago, single-celled life just mysteriously flickers into existence. Now, fast forward past billions of years of trial and error and 5 separate mass extinctions, and we hit 65 million years ago. Boom. The dinosaurs are wiped out, and suddenly the whole world is left completely wide open. You have to picture this. Imagine tiny, rat-sized mammals trembling in the dark in these ancient, dinosaur-filled forests. I mean, while the giant reptiles ruled, our ancient mammalian ancestors only survived by hiding out in burrows, completely terrified. But once the dinosaurs vanished, it was an open playing field. Suddenly, these tiny little guys could step out into the daylight without getting eaten. They started roaming into entirely new environments, and through the incredibly slow, unstoppable engine of natural selection, they branched out into totally varied species over millions of years, including, crucially for us, the early primates. Which brings us right to part 2, standing up to survive. Okay, here's another brilliant question from you all. Why did our ancestors start walking on 2 legs? To understand this, we've got to look at how a massive shift in geography literally rewrote our biology about 7 million years ago. Standing up wasn't just some random lifestyle choice. It was pure do or die survival. Imagine you're stuck in the back of a really crowded concert, and you have to stand on your tiptoes just to see the stage. Well, that was our ancestors, except the stakes were literally life and death. Huge tectonic shifts created these massive high mountains in Africa, which totally wrecked the climate. Those lush, humid forests where early primates used to swing around freely, they completely dried up. They turned into vast, dry savannas. So suddenly surrounded by endless tall grass, our ancestors had to rise up on 2 feet just to spot predators and find food. That moment right there, that planted the seed of humanity. When we map this out chronologically, you can really see how evolution is just this constant, ruthless process of trial and error. Sahelanthropus takes that first literal step 7 million years ago, separating from the apes. The evolutionary family tree starts growing all these crazy branches, like Australopithecus 3 million years ago. But changing environments are brutal, and a lot of those branches just snapped off and went completely extinct. It wasn't until about 2.4 million years ago that our specific Homo genus branched out, which eventually led to Homo erectus 1.8 million years ago, the very first species to stand completely, perfectly straight. Moving right along to part 3, tools, meat, and fire. Now, I want you to follow this incredible biological chain reaction. Better stone tools led to a meat-heavy diet, and that meat fueled absolutely massive brain growth. Around 3 million years ago, our ancestors figured out how to cut stones into crude little blades, making them way better hunters. And meat gave them incredible amounts of dense, high-quality nutrients that foraging for plants just couldn't match. And since the human brain is a total energy hog, all this new high-octane fuel went straight to expanding their cognitive abilities. Their intelligence just skyrocketed. Someone submitted this awesome question next. How was fire discovered? You're probably wondering how Homo erectus managed to harness this wild, destructive power 1.8 million years ago.
Because honestly, it's arguably the greatest technological leap in human history.
It most likely started with pure observation, maybe a lightning strike or flint sparking naturally against a rock. But because of their growing brain capacity, Homo erectus actually had the intense curiosity to stick around and investigate it instead of just running away. They figured out that fire scared off wild animals, sure, but way more importantly, they used it to cook meat. Now, cooking is essentially pre-digesting food outside of your body. It made the meat so much easier to digest, which saved massive amounts of bodily energy. And you guessed it, all that saved energy went straight back into fueling even more brain evolution, leading to highly intelligent species like Neanderthals and eventually Homo sapiens.
All right, let's dive into part 4, migration, teamwork, and language. So, as our brains grew bigger, our ambition grew too, leading to this massive, sprawling migration right out of Africa. But here's the catch. You cannot take down a giant, fast-moving deer all by yourself in the freezing snow. No way. You need a highly coordinated team. And teamwork? Well, that requires communication. This urgent, desperate need to survive fierce wild animals in incredibly cold new climates literally gave birth to proto-language. We turned gestures and grunts into communication, which flexed and expanded the cognitive centers of our brains even further. And as they marched further into the bitter, freezing cold of the Ice Age, they lost their natural body fur. So how'd they survive? They used those modified stone tools to skin animals and invent the very first clothes, roughly 17,000 years ago. It's just a remarkably clever example of our behavior adapting to compensate for our biological vulnerabilities. Which takes us to part 5, agriculture and ancient inventions. Look at the crazy contrast here. For millions of years, human life was just a constant, exhausting daily survival panic. Always wandering, always hunting, always hungry. But then, about 10,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution flipped the script completely. Farming meant that for the first time ever, our basic caloric needs were met predictably. It entirely solved the daily survival panic and created humanity's most valuable resource, abundant free time. They say an idle mind is the devil's workshop, but actually, it's the inventor's laboratory. Because they finally had full stomachs and free time, they could start digging pits to store surplus food. They invented the spinning wheel. And at night, they finally had the peace of mind to just sit back, gaze up at the sky, and develop astronomy. From creating complex writing and beautiful art to celebrating life through festivals, this free time is what birthed modern culture and totally laid the groundwork for the technological era we live in today. And finally, part 6, evolution's unfinished cosmic story. Now, class, please don't make the mistake of thinking evolution just hit the pause button because we invented smartphones and skyscrapers. Not at all. Just like you can't actually see your fingernails growing in real time, human biology is still quietly, slowly adapting to our modern lifestyle today. Our processed diets, our endless screen time, our incredibly dense concrete cities, these are our modern evolutionary pressures. A million years from now, Homo sapiens might branch out again and look completely unrecognizable to us. And as an evolutionary biologist, I want to leave you with this one final mind-bending thought. If the seeds of our spectacular evolution really did arrive here via asteroids, is it possible the universe is just a vast garden waiting to be discovered? If those 4-billion-year-old space rocks seeded Earth, aren't similar life-building molecules blooming somewhere else out there in the dark? Are we truly alone? Think about that tonight. Thank you all so much for inviting me to be your guide today, and please keep that curiosity burning.